Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto manga chapter review. This one's going to be for Two Blue Vortex chapter 21, which is called Mangakyo Sharingan. And yeah, very good chapter, very action focused. They delivered on the cliffhanger from the last chapter, which was a volume ending chapter, the reveal of Sarada using her Mangakyo Sharingan for the first time, and they go into it. That's what this chapter's about. We go into the character of Sarada, what she's about, the arc they've been trying to set up over the last couple of chapters, linking it into her dream to be Hokage, her reluctance to accept her feelings when it comes to talking to Sumire about Boruto, that sort of thing, what Yodo's kind of been bringing up recently. So they do a bit of everything here in terms of explaining the ability, Sarada character development, and kind of character development that it seems like is going to kind of propel her more into the spotlight as, I think, properly being in the position I think we wanted and expected her to be in Two Blue Vortex. But the arc kind of helps to explain why she maybe has not met that bar so far that we've maybe expected to. So I actually like the character development. I definitely want some more in addition to what we got here, but I was pretty pleased with it in terms of like they really spent some time in this chapter going through the background of this, but then also in the present day, what has changed with Sarada to make this kind of jump, happen basically. And then just in general, the plot is moving in, I think, relatively big ways. The way we did some of the action here, kind of seemingly finishing up a couple of fights, but then accelerating things hugely right at the end. It kind of feels like, are we doing things like right now, like coming up just in the next few chapters? Like, how far away are we from some of these kind of final fights with these Divine Tree characters? Because we know we have to maybe resolve this, get these characters out of the way to eventually, I think, build up to the Kawaki Boruto fight, which we maybe expect more to be one of the final set pieces, though I think we also maybe assume that there might be a grander story about, the Otsutsukis that we might need to get into, depending on if they're willing to full on open the lore in that way, but that's talking very long term. So let's refocus on chapter 21. So the cover page here is really nice. So we have Sarada here activating her ability. Love the background colors because, of course, it is the red and black of the Sharingan, the Mangakyo Sharingan. We, of course, get to see the kind of spheres, her kind of like black hole gravitational spheres, which is what her ability gets explained as here, in addition to like some of the swirls kind of getting sucked in towards it. And yeah, it's just really nice image. The color scheme is nice, and the chapter again is called Mangakyo Sharingan, so you know what we're going in, what we're expecting. So let's open it up. We open up the first proper page with flashback explaining what Sarada's dreams are. So we see her talking to Chocho, then to Boruto, and we really do kind of flash back over these couple of pages through a lot of the kind of key events for Sarada here. Her dream is to become the Hokage, like Lord Seventh. We addressed that for Boruto, of course. It's the opposite, like where Sarada is following Boruto's dad, Boruto is following Sarada's dad. It's the reverse. He wants to be her right-hand man, and he will work hard to protect her. And she kind of blushes at this. So we begin to bring the feelings for Boruto into play as Sumire comes in and talks about how she likes Boruto and how do you feel about other girls liking Boruto, and the fact that she hasn't really ever addressed this properly. We see Naruto addressing the kind of pressure of like, what you have to do to be Hokage. All of the people in this village are like my family. She notes that she's not an extraordinary shinobi like Lord Seventh or her father, and that's why she doesn't have time to be thinking about anything other than becoming a Hokage like Lord Seventh, who protects everyone and Konoha's future. But then we cut to her big moment where, for her, it was her proof that she was sort of powerless to really participate in the big battles. She wasn't quite where she needed to be. That, of course, being Boruto needing to step in to save her from Kawaki, leading to Boruto's eye injury, of course, where Kawaki completely looked down on her as nothing. She was powerlessness in that scene. Then we cut to the omnipotence stuff happening. So Shikamaru kind of referring to Boruto as being the one kind of behind all of this. He's the criminal. She's wondering why all of this has happened. Her and Sumire kind of figuring out that something has clearly happened, where Kawaki and Boruto, their perceptions have been switched, people's perceptions of them. And the big moment, the build-up is, this is too cruel. Why can't Boruto ever get a break? And we cut to, yes, the awakening of the Mangekyo Sharingan. This is how it happened. But this all builds up to a scene between Sasuke and Boruto talking. Kind of that, like, we went through this for us as the readers, but also, I guess, you know, finding out that Boruto is actually aware that Sarada has the Mangekyo as well. So he explains to Boruto that the Mangekyo is a variant of the Uchiha Sharingan, said to be triggered into awakening by extreme psychological shock, which in her case was, you know, how she felt about basically what Boruto was put through because of the omnipotence. So this is where we again double down on the idea that this was presented, I think, roughly in the chapter at the time, but I suppose it's more through words directly from Sasuke, that the fact that, you know, she awakened the Sharingan in response to what he perceives as being kind of like lies is what confirms to him that that is the truth, and he believes her because of that, because he knows the significance of the Mangekyo and its awakening, that's the proof for him to believe her. And that's why he kind of goes against what's in his own head to side with Boruto, is because of that moment where he saw her eyes change and acknowledged what she said. So that's a really cool kind of moment. He then explains that those eyes will be great help going forward, but Sarada herself doesn't seem to be aware that she awakened the Mangekyo in this moment, but that she will realize she has awakened it eventually, and she will intuitively come to understand it. So there's no need for training as such here. Once she accepts and realizes that she has made this kind of awakening, she will just know what it can do, which is what's happening in the present day. We will learn in a couple of pages' time that, yeah, this is basically her first time using it. She just immediately knows what to do because it's her power, because of how kind of unique each person who has the Mangekyo is. So yeah, we see in the present day Sarada with her kind of sphere, her black sphere up in the sky. We've seen a little bit about what it can do at the end of the previous chapter. So we resume the fight here. Everyone is reacting to what's going on. Of course, we have Yodo, who is down. The end of the chapter basically all but confirms she's dead, but I never read that into her kind of almost collapsing into unconsciousness from before, so I'm not kind of immediately inclined to just be like, yep, Yodo's gone. So we'll probably have to wait for maybe the next chapter to see if they commit to that overall, because it feels like a little bit of a underwhelming death perhaps in terms of what they've done here, but we'll move on. So yeah, Ryu decides to attack once again, but once more his sand is pulled away into the sphere. So he's kind of trying to figure out what exactly is kind of happening here. Sarada takes command of the battlefield and has Mitsuki to, you guard Araya and Yodo, protect yourself too. So Sarada clearly believes, I guess, that Yodo is still alive here and needs to be protected, so they don't can acknowledge it in that way. Which is why I maybe am inclined to believe that like Ada, Kashinkoji, and Boruto are maybe slightly assuming, leaping to conclusions that she's dead, but we'll get there. She says that don't worry, this ability may have just awakened, but I already know what it can do. So it's her first time using it, basically. So she's known that she has something to awaken, but it hasn't yet awakened because she's basically held it back. And she'll explain this in a few pages' time, why this is the moment she has kind of awakened it. And of course it relates to what Yodo said to her at the end of the last chapter. You've held something back, you don't understand yourself yet. When will you? Why are you hiding this? If you can't use it here, when can you use it? Like that sort of idea. So yeah, they're all trying to figure it out. Like, okay, my sand is going to get drawn towards that thing. So I can attack Sarada by aiming it and having it go through a trajectory such that it will be pulled to the black sphere through Sarada. She looks and there's another one. there's now 2 black spheres in the sky that can pull it, and she seemingly can choose which one is the one actively pulling. So his initial plan is not going to work. Now it seems like she has a perfect defense against his iron sand attacks. So they just seem to suck up the sand, and that's it. So what's going on? He then looks widely across the battlefield and sees that there are 4 of these black spheres up in the sky. So she can create 4 of them at the very least. So there's no chance of him coming up with some clever angle to get her, because one of these 4 is going to be able to suck in the sand when it comes out. So then she kind of focuses her power, and suddenly Ryu starts to float. Then she starts to float. So I'm guessing because she has this kind of grouping of spheres, she can do some sort of thing where it's like a combination of the different kind of gravitational forces, because that's what Mitsuki then explains it as, that with maybe one of them she can do a little bit of maneuvering around, but because there's a kind of array of them, she can selectively use them in tandem to make herself basically fly and make people kind of move around in kind of whatever way she wants. So it's an incredibly versatile and powerful ability here, but as we'll see, the weakness is just that it seems to be particularly strong chakra resources are used, so it's going to drain very, very quickly here. So yeah, Mitsuki figures out it's gravitational forces. Ryu tries to kind of anchor himself to the ground with his iron sand, but that gets pulled out too. And Mitsuki also realizes that, oh, she can selectively choose what gets affected by it and what doesn't. She can choose to have anything or nothing pulled in if she wants. So that's why Ryu and her are flying, but no one else is being affected by it. So she has no immediate downsides apart from the energy drain, I think, to this ability, which is very, very powerful. So yeah, Ryu's being pulled towards one of the spheres at this point. This is when she gives her sort of like character development speech, which is quite good here. For too long, I've averted my gaze, fretting that my goal to become Hokage felt so out of reach, never being able to do anything about all of the calamities happening. I didn't want to acknowledge it. I was scared to admit how powerlessness I am. Powerlessness? Powerless? I'm probably reading too much into the word, but anyway. Yeah, so like I said earlier, this is her admitting that this is, she's looked away from a lot of these maybe harsh truths perhaps about herself. And she's going to go through a bunch of them now. So, she's always felt like she hasn't quite been able to help out when a lot of these crazy things are happening. She hasn't been powerful enough to make these things happen. And so she says she looked away. She averted her gaze away from this stuff. Including stuff like, as she continues, she remembers Sumire, of course. I've averted my gaze, looked away from the me who felt unsettled by class reps' feelings for Boruto. Then she remembers Boruto, and from my own feelings towards Boruto. So there's a lot of admittance happening here at this point, that she is startled by Sumire's feelings, a bit jealous, I guess. That's how she really feels. She does actually like Boruto, even though she oftentimes has not properly admitted that out loud. She says she rejected them all as weaknesses, not realizing that I was also rejecting the power hiding inside me. So I guess they're trying to do this thing here where, because the power was awakened effectively because of her sort of like strong feelings for Boruto, being upset on his behalf, and how that impacted kind of her, that her then going on to basically reject and not acknowledge those feelings, of course, meant that, I guess, the power, she knew something was there, but she then connected it kind of to these other feelings which she refused to acknowledge. And it's only now through Yodo basically forcing her in the heat of the battle here to address these things, address the power, that like, hey, if there's any opportunity to use your power, it's here. It doesn't have to be for the greater good. You can use it to help the people you care about. you know, in a way, this chapter is confirming that that's kind of how you awakened it in the first place. That's what you want to use it for. Just do it. That's what you need to do. And it's a really, really cool scene as we cut to this really kind of like determined expression on Sarada's face as she's accepted this kind of harsh truth. And we see, you know, the Mangekyo Sharingan eyes, of course. Ryu tries one desperate last attack, but Sarada kind of opens her eyes a little bit more and he is smashed down against the sphere. Again, he doesn't go into it here. It's just he's kind of arched across it, basically. Such is the gravitational force of being sucked into the center of this small enough sphere, of course. So he notes that the pulling force is getting stronger. She says, I'm not looking away anymore, because if I run from myself, I can't tackle the reality in front of me. I can't save a single person. They do cut to Yodo at this point, and I'm like, is this where we're maybe confirming that she's dead, because like we haven't focused on it at all? But it's just that idea of, I guess Yodo was the one who helped her to get to this kind of conclusion. Maybe through doing it here, she can save her on this battlefield. That's part of it as well. So, yeah, at this point, a claw grime kind of like comes out. Ryu desperately tries to kind of put his fingers into the claw mark on the claw grime. You see his fingers come out next to Jura through the kind of portal kind of situation. But he's not able to properly move because the pulling force of Sarada's ability is stronger than, I guess, the activation of this ability to be pulled into the claw mark. So this is where we're going to see the end of Ryu here. If becoming Hokage is my dream, I need to start by accepting myself. Again, this is basically what Yoda was talking about. You don't understand yourself yet. You're hiding a power, but you're also hiding your feelings about things. You have to accept those feelings, accept the power, and this is what she's doing in this moment. This is also the panel where we do start to see her blood coming out of one of her eyes. So I guess they are still committing to the idea of this is such a powerful ability that like it eventually will make you blind. Now, maybe they're just doing this for effect. Maybe they will commit to doing something different with it overall. But very noticeably, they make sure to keep that continuity of the blood trickling down from her eye for the rest of the chapter. Then we get her finishing the fight here. So she activates the kind of named special ability of her Mangekyo Sharingan here. Very cool full page shot here. Her floating in the air. You see the three other spheres, because of course Ryu is on the other one and she's looking at him. So we're looking at her so we don't see it. We're kind of almost looking at her through Ryu's perspective almost. But interestingly, the pattern of her Mangekyo Sharingan, the kind of like triangles kind of pointing around almost like in a clock, are all around her. Now, I'm not sure if this is just for effect on this kind of page where she reveals the name of the technique, because we don't see these triangles in any of the other panels, either before or after. It's only on this page, and it's not clear if they get used up in any specific way doing anything. So, because like they don't highlight that she just has this ring of these kind of small triangles around her to kind of keep her floating, which is maybe one cool thing that could happen. So I don't know, is it just meant to be that cool kind of graphical special attack name, and here's a pattern as well as what she's actually doing. But the name of it is Mangekyo Sharingan Ohirume, Ohirume. There's a translator's note on this that it is an alternate name for Amaterasu, the sun goddess and chief deity of the Shinto pantheon. So of course that's one of the other Mangekyo Sharingan abilities, and we're highlighting here that, well, alternate name, alternate ability here. It's, I guess, meant to be like equivalent in some sort of a way, but down a different avenue because we've never seen this ability before. But it's kind of clever with that naming, that it is just an alternate name to Amaterasu and it does something quite different. That's the black fire, of course. This is clearly this gravitational crushing technique, which is kind of crazy, because what happens then, she activates this, is that Ryu, who's on top of the sphere, tendrils of the sphere start to come out and basically kind of like almost like collapse in on him, and he's basically just torn apart. It's crazy because we just cut to the idea of the sphere collapses in on itself. It's like this singularity almost, and there's nothing left. Like everything has been basically like atomized, like such is the I guess crushing force of this into nothing. And the specks of stuff all around the place. The soul thorn bulb has survived, as we'll see in just a page, but she has defeated Ryu here. She does immediately collapse after this point. Mitsuki does grab her here before she hits the ground. So we're in an interesting situation here where Yodo is potentially dead, but at the least unconscious with a mortal wound, and Sarada is just unconscious from, I guess, chakra usage, which is what Mitsuki says. So Mitsuki and Araya are still active, and they do see the soul thorn bulb right there. So they do have to grab that pretty quick before it kind of scoots off and reforms Ryu. So that's an important detail to remember as well. They do have to act quite quickly there, but otherwise they've won this battle. Someone just needs to grab that bulb. We then cut from this to Ada reacting to this. So again, it's Ada, Kashin Koji, and Boruto talking here. She says Ryu was just defeated, taken down by Sarada's new power. Kashin Koji notes that this is one of the key critical goals that he wanted to achieve from this battle, was Sarada awakening her Mangekyo so she could be someone else who can defeat the Divine Tree characters. This is where we get the first kind of, in my mind, like I was a bit shocked when I heard this, like she says, indeed, though it's a real shame about Yodo, as in like she's dead. And as they go on, they just kind of talk about her in this way as if she's already died, but I'm kind of still running with the idea of, on the actual like events happening with Yodo, I haven't quite got that impression just yet, so I'm still waiting for confirmation there. Kashin Koji says, but it wasn't in vain. Her sacrifice was a major contributing factor to this outcome, so it couldn't be helped. Boruto then asks, answer me truthfully, was there any chance of the Mangekyo awakening without anyone dying? He says, I can say this much. If you'd gone to help, it definitely wouldn't have awakened. Boruto then says, you knew that Yodo would die, as if, like, this to me feels like the closest to confirmation that they're saying here. They're running with the idea she's dead. I'm not sure if they've actually confirmed this. I know Ada can technically see the battlefield, but because we didn't see anyone note that she's breathed her last breath or something like that, in my mind, like, what she said to Sarada before she went unconscious was just like, yeah, she said something and then went unconscious because she suffered a devastating wound. Not that she died on the spot, but maybe I've misinterpreted that. But I think I'm just running with, unless we cut back and Araya is like she's dead, I'm running with the idea that she's not dead. But anyway, Kashin Koji says, I determined that it was best not to tell you, and your reaction kind of proves me correct. He then asks about Konohamaru. Does he have a chance against Matsuri? And Kashin Koji just says, hey, Jura is connected to all the others through their shared senses. If you appear before Matsuri, he will seize you in a flash and kill you. I've seen too many permutations of this, and they all have the same ending. So this is the threat here. You can go to save him, but you will probably die yourself because we haven't set up things correctly to be able to take down Jura just yet. So are you going to act rashly or logically? And we, of course, I think have an idea for how Boruto is going to react. We then cut to what's happening with Matsuri and Konohamaru. So we find out that the result of her big charge is that, well, she's missing like half of her body. Konohamaru, of course, has injuries from before in his back. And what she attacked him with, her kind of cloak, she stabbed him in like both arms, basically both shoulders. So his arms are kind of immobilized. It seems like she really truly has him kind of dead to rights here. He is going to die if someone doesn't interfere, which is exactly what happens. A shuriken hits Matsuri. As she looks at it, Boruto appears out of nowhere. Konohamaru briefly spots one of the metal pieces floating up in the air, explaining how he got here. This was, I suppose, the one that Mitsuki found earlier, is what the chapter says. And as she turns around and says Boruto, she doesn't even get his full name out before he, I guess, teleports to the shuriken and just cuts her to ribbons. She is in pieces within the transition between a panel. We see her kind of part of her face. She's completely cut to shreds here. I don't think there's any way she isn't left as a soul thorn bulb after this. Kashin Koji calls Boruto an idiot for doing this. He's going to ruin everything. And the final two panels are Jura reacting to this. There you are, Otsutsuki Boruto. So he is aware Boruto is on the battlefield and he's interfering. He is, quote unquote, taken out one of his group. I guess he knows that one of the other group members was taken out as well. This is a big thing happening. This is probably exactly what they don't want. Suddenly he's gone from full group to down two, and Boruto's right there. Kind of feels like, yeah, he's going to have to act at this point. Now again, the threat that they warned us about was that if he gets properly angry, there will be no one who can defeats him. I guess because it will properly awaken the beast side of him, which with his new form will just make him so powerful no one can actually defeat him. The counterpoint to that, I guess, is like when Kawaki finally gets his power up, the idea that they're kind of trying to get at is that like Boruto and Kawaki together should be able to be a match. But I think they're kind of going for the idea that they'll be a match for Jura before Jura gets angry. So we have to wait and see how this all plays out, because there is still a bunch of moving parts here, in the sense that Matsuri and Ryu have not been properly defeated until Soul Thorn bulbs are delivered to the tree where the original character is. So Matsuri's one has to be delivered back to wherever the tree with Moegi in it is, and of course Ryu's bulb has to be delivered to where Shinki is, which will also, I guess, bring Gaara back into play as well. It feels like the obvious setup here would probably still be that on the Ryu side of the story, we should have won that side of the fight. We should be able to free Shinki overall. And the complications, of course, will be that if Jura arrives on the scene, that will probably facilitate Matsuri's bulb escaping and then being able to revive her at a later point to maybe have a more proper showdown later down the road. Because I do feel they've done good character setup between Konohamaru and Matsuri, that I want to see how a fight would go when it's more of a proper fight, where it's a group involving Konohamaru against her, where they've had this back and forth, where there's a little bit of a dynamic now, but she feels betrayed by him. He knows that does he have it in him to manipulate her? Not really. But he now knows that she wants to kill him, and he has to have his guard up. So a second encounter for these two characters still feels like something I would like to see happen. So I kind of hope that like it's not just this ultimately is the defeat of full-on two of these characters immediately. A lot depends though on just in the overall trajectory of the story. Are we just into the final fights right now? Because this does open the door to Jura arrives on the scene. Kawaki, I think they're just waiting now for chapters upon chapters for him to be revealed to have got the upgrade, and so he can arrive on the scene. He can finally fight and potentially defeat these characters too, but there's the risk now of him dying because the defensive properties have been turned into offensive properties. So Kawaki will be back in play in a big way. And what are we doing? Because they still haven't overly set up some of the other stuff. Like Hidari can just arrive and have his scene with Sarada, especially now that Sarada has had this kind of character development. So that should be a pretty good fight for her. The battle of the kind of Uchiha kind of characters in that way should be fun. Mamushi, the guy who's after Ada, they haven't done as much setup there. She's afraid of him. The fact that he seems to be able to see her visions if like she tries to look at him live, basically. But like Demon, we assume, would fight to protect her primarily. So when's that fight going to happen? Where is it going to happen? Are the questions. Kashin Koji is an active player, so when is he going to join the battlefield? And that's a big thing in this as well. So obviously from Kashin Koji's perspective, he feels that Boruto making this choice has cut off a bunch of possibilities that were easier, and now there are only like a select few avenues by which they actually win. And who knows if there's even any left at this point. That's the idea here that we're kind of getting into, because you can see Boruto, like, he appreciates the plan but doesn't like how kind of heartless they have to be about it, that they have to accept that some people will die to facilitate this thing happening, which will be the thing that eventually leads to their overall victory. He can't accept that because he is the hero character. So that's a pretty big thing, and that's something that, like, is the same for Sarada. She's not going to hold back on her power just because it's, in her mind, it's maybe not the exact right time to use it. No, now is the time to use it. Someone that she has recently become friends with is nearly dead in Yodo. She has to use this. This is her moment to prove herself on the battlefield, and she's done that. That if you now have a team of, like, Boruto, Kawaki, I guess, and Sarada, she can definitely do some kind of clever things in terms of just making it very awkward for whatever villain they're up against. That is a hugely powerful ability that she has. That is just, you know, actually going to be super, super useful in coming fights overall. So I like that. I definitely want more on the character development side of things for Sarada, and I assume we will get that, because now that she has had this moment, if Yodo survives, I guess she and Yodo can have a moment. When she gets back to Sumire, now Sarada can talk about things with Sumire, because I guess she does understand her feelings. And then how does that work? You know, she's finally, I guess, fully truthful and open with Sumire that she does like Boruto. That will hurt Sumire, but it is the truth. She is being kind of honest and open with herself. Where does that place Sumire as a character, kind of as we go forward? It is a complicated situation, but you can sort of see what they're doing on the character development side of things, and that it's actually, I think, pretty good character development stuff to explain why she hasn't used the Mangekyo all of this time, by linking that ability to all of this other stuff that they've set up already that she hasn't acknowledged, and she's going to do both of them at the same time because they're kind of interlinked in that way because of how she awoke the ability in the first place. I do think that's actually quite clever writing. I think they just need to do, like, a little bit more with it, and it's a pretty clean arc here. I do hope it is the moment where, like, Sarada properly kind of joins the main cast here and will be kind of notable going forward. So there is that. Otherwise, like, yeah, for a volume opening chapter, like, there's 3 more left for this volume that this chapter will be collected in. This is a really good opener. And the cliffhanger suggests that the next couple of chapters are going to have to be huge. I still feel that we maybe have to build up to, like, a retreat where we end up, like, with all the characters breaking off at a certain point and we don't go straight into the big fights, but who knows? Maybe they've decided to kind of push things forward a bit, increase the pacing a little bit, and we're just into those final fights. But I get the impression that maybe what they more want to do here is to give us a little bit of a glimpse of the full scope of Jura's powers, that, like, hey, here's why Boruto can't stand up to him on his own. Here's how we just barely get out of this situation overall, is that he maybe slightly prioritizes saving, like, Matsuri and her bulb right there over defeating Boruto, or something along those lines. I can absolutely, because it's been so long since we've seen Kawaki just returning out of nowhere with a big, huge attack, that being the thing that temporarily drives Jura off. Because I do think we have to calm things down, see who won, who lost, what characters have died, who are injured, have survived, that sort of thing, and then we build up to the final fight, because I think Konohamaru and Matsuri probably have to have another fight, like I mentioned before. If Inoshika Cho are going to be involved in that, Inojin needs to have fully recovered so he can be involved in the fight as well, but we have to wait and see. So very impressed with this chapter. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this chapter. Did you like the Sarada character development? Do you like what they've settled on her ability as being this kind of a black hole gravitational powers? What are your thoughts there, and especially on some of just the plot progress they did right at the end? Let me know below, but otherwise that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.